joining us today. My name is Craig Foley, and I'm the CEO of Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'm delighted to co-host today's webinar. It's great to see so many familiar names on the screen, many returning from previous sessions, but we also have some new participants. We're thrilled to have you with us, and we encourage as many industry members as possible to participate in these important industry update sessions. I'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the land on which we gather virtually today. We are on the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, as well as the Innu, Inuit, and Mi'kmaq peoples. Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador recognizes the deep histories and vibrant cultures of these Indigenous groups, which has shaped the land we now work, live, and enjoy. We remain committed to building respectful relationships with all peoples in this province as we collectively work towards healing and reconciliation, honoring the beauty of this land together. Today's webinar will run for just under 2 hours and will be recorded for anyone who was unable to register. Due to the size of today's group, we will not be able to accommodate a live question and answer. However, if you have questions, please submit them in the question and answer section, and we have a team to help address those. Throughout the presentation, we'll also be sharing some poll questions, so we encourage you to engage with us along the way. And also, at the end of the session, we'll provide a QR code that will take you to a form where you can request follow-up information or ask any questions that you may have. I'd now like to introduce my co-host for today. We are joined once again by Carol Ann Gilliard, Assistant Deputy Minister with the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation. For those of you who may not know, before her time with government, Carol Ann was a former CEO of Hospitality NL. So her connection to tourism in our province runs deep. Carol Ann, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Craig. I realize when I'm looking at the screen, I lift my eyes up to look at the screen. It might look like I was rolling my eyes at you when you were speaking, so I apologize if that's the interpretation that anybody had out there.
I think I know the difference in an eye roll from you when I'm looking up at the screen.
Thanks, everybody, for being here this morning. We've got a very full agenda today for our 2 hours. Thanks so much for being here and taking the time out of your schedule. I am going to have some co-hosts with me today as well from the department, so I'll introduce those as we reach those sections of the presentation. But given we've got a full agenda, let's get started. And I believe we are starting off today with an easy, get our heads out of the rain and fog. So Craig, how about the first poll?
So just to get everybody stretched and energized, we're asking the question, in which region of the province do you operate? And it seems that you're all very energetic today because we're starting to see the answers roll in. People are still answering. Okay, so I think we've got a great distribution here, Carol Ann. There we go. We see where everybody's to. So we see how the poll questions are going to work, and we get a great feel on who's involved. Thanks so much.
Excellent. That was the first easy one. So just for a little bit of an outline for today's presentation, we're going to follow along largely with the Transformation Action Plan, which we've developed for 2024 to 2026. So we'll provide an update on research as well as our 2024 year-to-date performance. We'll do a thorough marketing update as well as an overview of some of our key initiatives with quality improvement, training skills and knowledge, and finally around our leadership and governance initiatives. As everyone will recall, the vision that we are operating under right now, Vision 2026, is actually a 3-phased approach. We are right now in the middle, in the transformation phase. And so that's going to be largely the focus of our conversation here today. Just wanted to remind everybody that everything that we do is guided by the strategic framework of Vision 2026 and the 8 pillars that we identified back in 2022. guide us in all of our efforts for the short, medium, and longer term. And we want to have this framework to be that foundation that we build upon for our next iteration of our vision as well. So just a reminder for everybody as well that we have a very comprehensive performance measurement framework for Vision 2026, which does measure short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. But I want to remind everybody what our ultimate goals and outcomes are for Vision 2026. We are currently working with our industry and just about to start to do some individual one-on-one engagement with our boards and key stakeholder organizations to establish what those ultimate target numbers are. But what we have identified is we have two ultimate outcomes that we want to achieve, and one of those is tourism growth, and the other is to establish a sustainable tourism sector here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So what do we mean when we talk about the ultimate outcome of tourism growth? And what we want to achieve with Vision 2026 and beyond is attracting more visitors in peak and off-peak seasons. So we are establishing specific targets for how much we want to grow in the peak and how much we want to grow in our off-peak seasons. And those numbers are going to be different given our historical growth and where we see capacity and opportunities in the future. We are establishing targets for how much we want to extend stays. We are establishing targets for the new and enhancing existing high-value experiences that we have in the province. We are trying to have regional dispersion and increase travel to all of our regions of Newfoundland and Labrador. And finally, increase tourism revenue and contribution to GDP in the province. A sustainable tourism sector for us and the leadership of Vision 2026 has defined that as, a sustainable sector is one that has strong tourism leadership and governance, that the ecosystem of those many diverse tourism services and attractions and partners and organizations that support tourism development, we're all connected and we're all aligned, focused in the same direction and working towards the same outcomes. The sustainable sector would have economic, environmental, and socio-cultural goals that we are achieving. We would have sustainable, high-value assets, and that our tourism operations are healthy and profitable. And that would be how we define a sustainable sector for tourism. So now I'm just going to get into a bit of an overview on the specific activities that are in our Transformation Action Plan. So when I presented in spring of this year, I presented the Transformation Action Plan, which is here on the screen in front of you. It is a comprehensive plan that we're working under, and it's not the plan for the department. It is all of our plan, Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, our destination management organizations and our government partners that are involved, as well as the many industry organizations and tourism operations that make up the tourism industry. It's all of our plan. And so some of us have the lead in some of these areas. So I'll talk first on the key three that tourism, culture, arts, and recreation is responsible for leading. And we'll advance some of those deeper conversations. So when it comes to research for us, the Transformation Action Plan is really largely trying to focus in on understanding our performance and how do we adapt as we learn more about how we're performing in our markets, in our specific trip characteristics, all of those things. We are focused on making sure that we are collecting the data that we need in order to make strategic and operational decisions. And we've certainly done a fair bit of comparative analysis and understanding our markets and visitor insights. And there's just a very robust research plan underway right now. A couple of updates under research. We presented the visitor survey results to everybody by presentation back in the spring. Since then, we have loaded up the first report of the visitor exit survey that is available under the TCAR page of govnl.ca. I've got the link there on the screen for you. There is more analysis to come on all of the research that we've received, or all of the knowledge that we've received from that survey. The research team is slicing and dicing the data daily. And we've done a great deal of learning so far on things that we can be, ways that we can be adapting our strategies based on what we're learning so far on how things have changed and evolved over the past number of years. I'm also very pleased to say that we have 7 or 8 months under our belt now of, or actually it's closer to 11 months under our belt now of doing our annual visitor surveying. This is the first time we've done this at our main gateways. So we have spent this year to try to establish the right processes with the research agency that we're working with. We are going to be honing in on what our reporting structure is going to look like, adapting our reporting tools. And this information is going to keep all of our data very fresh, and we're learning how things are changing as we go. We're able to see eventually, when we get all of our processes established, we're going to be able to see in real time how we're doing in our key markets and how things are shifting and evolving. So that'll be very good for us to change our strategies or adapt in whatever way necessary. A couple of other things that we have underway with the research team. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that the performance metrics are being established. So we are doing up a bit of a mothership consultation and engagement document that we need for that. We also work with the Atlantic Canada Agreement on Tourism with our other Atlantic Canada provinces. And we get a good deal of good research through that agreement. One of the things that we are going to be getting pretty soon would be some consumer research from the US. And we had a sneak peek on some of that information. And we've had campaigns in the US for a number of years now. And the results that we're seeing in the US market, I think, is very positive and does point to some great opportunities in the future. We are also doing a visitor segmentation to understand more deeply how our key markets are traveling, their behavior, our understanding of their needs and expectations. We are also, Daryl will talk about this a little bit later, but we are doing some work on our visitor services to try to understand how we can adapt, and a little bit more about that later. And finally, many of you have heard, I would imagine, about the Canadian Tourism Data Collective, which is a new platform through Destination Canada. We are doing our due diligence on understanding exactly how we can use the Data Collective in Newfoundland and Labrador. So we are seeing some wonderful things coming from the Data Collective, and it really does harness data at a level that really does drill down into the local level. And we do think that there are some opportunities for us that we may be able to use this data for some of the ways that we used to collect statistics. We now may be able to use the Data Collective for that. So we're going to launch into doing an overview of 2024 tourism performance. And I'm going to turn it over to Krista Noseworthy. She is the Senior Research Analyst with our research team at TCAR. So I think Krista, if you are good to go, we'll turn over the patch to you.
Thanks, Caroline. Good morning, everybody. Our update today is going to cover the period from January to the end of August, and it's going to focus on some of our year-to-date air and auto visitation, passenger movements, occupancy, and visitation to our provincial historic sites and visitor information centers. We don't have our final cruise data yet, so that's not included in this update, and we'll incorporate that into our 2024 performance at the end of the year. So when we start to look at our 2024 year-to-date performance, there's a few things we should keep in mind. First, we've noted that in 2023, so last year, there was a sizable share of our visitors that were actually catching up on trips to the province, which they had postponed during the pandemic. So in our 2023 visitor exit survey, we asked about this, and we found out that about 12% of visitors surveyed said their 2023 trip to Newfoundland and Labrador was actually a makeup trip, and this represents approximately 60,000 visitors. So these trips boosted our visitation and helped accelerate our recovery in 2023, probably above rates that we would expect and rates seen in neighboring destinations such as Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia actually finished 2023 about 6% below 2019 levels, whereas in Newfoundland and Labrador, we finished the year about 1% below 2019 overall, but we did see our vacation visitation in 2023 perform really strongly, so it was actually 10% above 2019 levels. It's also important to note that the business travel and the business events sector is not fully recovered yet. So business travel makes up a significant share of our annual visitation. In 2016, it was around 26%. And then in 2023, that dropped to 18%. So business is definitely not fully recovered, and it's not expected to reach pre-pandemic levels in Canada until about 2026. Also, business event bookings are also slower to recover, not expected to fully recover nationally until 2028. Furthermore, we have to keep in mind the economic environment that we're operating in. It remains uncertain. We've seen several years of high inflation, and that's weighed on our consumer confidence and disposable income. But despite all these economic headwinds, we're still seeing through our other research that Canadians continue to prioritize leisure travel, and that's good news for continued recovery and stronger growth through 2030. Lastly, we'll see that international visitation to Canada is also still recovering. So in July 2024, nationally, U.S. overnight arrivals to Canada were still below 2019 levels, and the U.S. remains a key market for us. So recovery in that market is going to be important as we go through at 25. Year-to-date July, we also saw that overall international arrivals, so overseas arrivals to Canada, also remained 10% below 2019. So all of these things we'll just keep in mind as we look at our 2024 performance. Overall, air and auto non-resident visitation to the province reached 316,791 from January to August. This is down about 3% from the same period in 2023 and 6% below 2019 levels. Again, as we just mentioned, we'll keep in mind some of the impact of that makeup trip bump and things that we experienced in 2023 as we look at our 24 numbers. Performance has been mixed so far across a range of our tourism indicators. Recovery to 2019 levels has been reached for auto visitation, which actually sits 16% above 2019 levels. Air visitation, however, is a little bit weaker. It remains 12% below the same period in 2019. And just to note some of our competitive destination performance, so in Nova Scotia is also reporting a small drop in visitation relative to 2023. So as of July, they're down about 0.5%, and they're continuing to see weaker recovery from their drive markets and from Atlantic Canada and Quebec in particular. As of July, Nova Scotia is actually 13.5% below 2019 levels. So this chart here just shows our combined air and auto visitation on a monthly basis for each year of 2019, 2023, and 2024. 2019 is the red line there. You'll notice that each year our visitation, as we would expect, peaks in July and August. But you'll also notice that in June and July of last year, in 2023, our visitation was quite strong and actually exceeded 2019 levels in those months, as well as in September. Monthly visitation in 2024 has largely kept pace with 2023, with the exception of a couple of months in April and July. Now we're just going to focus on some of our air visitation indicators. You'll see air visitation, airport passenger movements, and seat capacity here in this section. In terms of airport activity, so that's all the boarding and deplaning passengers through all of our major airports. That reached 1.36 million through August. That's an increase of 11% compared to 2023, with 7% below 2019 levels. And as we referenced a bit earlier, our air visitation itself reached 237,000 through August. It's down 3% from the same period in 2023 and 12% below 2019 levels. And now we're going to move on to seat capacity. So there were over 873,000 inbound nonstop seats to the province through August, which is actually 29% above the same period in 2023 and 9% above 2019 levels. Inbound nonstop seat capacity to the province has been steadily increasing over the past 2 years, and we've seen particular increases from our major source markets in Halifax, Toronto, Calgary, and Edmonton. Throughout 2024, our monthly seat capacity has also been surpassing 2019 levels in every month. So year-to-date August, airlines have been offering nearly 75,000 more nonstop inbound seats than they did in the same time frame in 2019. Next slide. And this slide here is just helps us visualize the close link between inbound nonstop seat capacity and our air visitation. This graph shows air visitors and inbound seats from 2009 to 2023. Between 2009 and 2019, air visitation actually increased 36%, and it peaked at 414,600 visitors in 2016. And during the same period, our inbound nonstop seat capacity also increased actually 24%, and it peaked at 1.32 million seats in 2016. Looking at the whole period from 2009 to 2023, it's clear that our seat capacity and our air visitation have followed very similar patterns, with just a couple of exceptions noted on the graph there that were driven by external factors. So in 2014 and 2015, we did see business travel heavily impacted by a decline in oil prices. And then, of course, in 2020 and 2021, we saw the pandemic have a profound impact on our air travel. Now we're going to move along to auto visitation. It's been really strong in recent years, and we're just starting to see a slowdown now relative to 2023. The number of non-resident auto visitors reached just over 80,000 through August, which is 2% below 2023 levels, but still 16% above the same period in 2019. Marine Atlantic passenger movements of both directions between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador reached just over 262,000 through August, down 3% from 2023, but still up 14% from 2019. And the number of crossings decreased just slightly, just down less than 1% from 2023, but still up 7% above 2019. We're going to move along to our registered accommodation sector. Accommodations continue to perform well relative to 2019 through August. However, our preliminary data do show a slowdown compared to the same period in 2023. And when we look at our accommodations data, it's really important to note that through 2023, a number of hotel rooms across the province were allocated for alternate use. And that impacts our sector performance and how we, compare 2024 to 2023. Year to date, the registered accommodations reported over 1.1 million room nights sold, a decrease of 7% from the same period last year, but 16% above 2019 levels. In terms of occupancy rates, our provincial occupancy reached 55.7% from January to August, a decrease of 4 points compared to 2023, but nearly 9 points higher than during the same period in 2019. Total room revenue across the province reached 189.2 million from January to August, down 1% compared to the same period last year, but still 41% above 2019 levels. And our average daily rate was really strong, reaching $169. It's up 7% from 2023, when it sat at $158, and up 21% from 2019, when it was $139. Sticking with our accommodations, these graphs highlight room night sales by month for 2019, 2023, and 2024, as well as our monthly average daily rate for those periods. On a year-to-date basis, you'll notice that room night sales continue to surpass 2019, despite a slowdown compared to last year. Our average daily rate continues to trend upward, with the average daily rate in the month of August actually reaching $192. It's up significantly from $151 posted in August of 2019. Now, lastly, we'll just take a look at our visitation to our provincial historic sites and visitor information centers. From May to September, our provincial historic sites recorded over 93,000 visitors, which was 8% higher than the same period last year and 6% below 2019 levels. And our provincial VICs recorded close to 126,000 visitors from May to October. That's 8% more than last year and actually 1% above 2019 levels. Go ahead.
Okay, so just before we turn it over to Craig for the question, I think just a summary of all of that, which was a lot of rich information to provide, that we've been largely able to, as a province, all of us together, we've been able to come back up in terms of the visitation out of that hole that we were in 2020, 2021, and even 2022. And you can see that we've had tremendous growth back up to where our overall visitation numbers used to be. But I think, I'd like to leave a lasting message for everybody that the work that everyone has done to grow back that visitation has really come on the vacation visitor, because business events and business travel is still not back. So we've more than made up for it in terms of vacation visitors. So I think that's a really nice thing to say at the end, when we're looking at these stats, and how closely air visitation is linked to overall inbound seat capacity, and that further identifies how important it is for us to continue to advance our air access strategy. Sorry to take up all that time, but I wanted to summarize those couple of points.
I think very important points, and we seem to be moved right along. People have answered the question, and the other good news that I would say from the poll results is that generally people see an increase in visitation, which is nice to see reported.
Excellent.
That allows you to move forward, Caroline.
Yeah. Excellent. That's good to hear. Okay, so the next big pillar of work that we are going to give an update on would be marketing. So under the marketing banner, we have three main buckets, which would be the work that we do in our advertising and communications, the work that we do for our travel trade and travel media, and then we have our visitor services team. So in each of these three areas, there's a lot of work happening, and we're all the time adapting as we learn more. So I'm going to turn it over to Daryl Smith, is our Director of Tourism Marketing, and he's going to take you through our advertising, our travel trade media, and visitor services updates for today. So there you go, Daryl.
All right, thank you very much, Caroline. I guess first off, coming into this role slightly over 2 years ago, I think like most folks in the marketing world, or just in the world in general, when they thought about marketing in terms of Newfoundland and Labrador, they often thought about the beautiful ads and all of that you would see out there. What I've come to learn is that's a hugely important piece of what we do, obviously. But there's so much more that happens behind the scenes that the general public and even a lot of those of us in the industry don't see. And it's a good segue that the first thing we're talking about here today is our travel trade and travel media. So many of you would have had an opportunity to work fairly closely with Denise Seach, who is our manager of travel trade and travel media. Denise came on board, I guess, maybe about 9 months after I did. And our task to her, or our main ask of her, was to immerse herself in travel trade, travel media, and come back with a set of guidelines that would basically set the tone of where we want to go. We all realize that doing things the way they've always been done is not always where you want to be, and we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on the right opportunities and looking at anything new that's out there that we want to that we believe will be effective for us. So from a right off the bat, I guess first time this is just an example of our attitude, I guess, towards new things. Is that somebody had mentioned the idea of the Travefy itinerary builder. And Travefy is something that has been used by some of our DMOs in the past. So the question was raised, well, why aren't we doing the same thing? We looked into it. We worked with OCIO, which of course is our government IT department, for lack of a better word. And they said, absolutely, go for it. So this tool in and of itself has made the coordination of FAMs, working with our travel trade and travel media suppliers, so much more efficient, and really has helped us work much more closely and more efficiently with all of our partners. I should reference as well, FAM season for 2024 very much dominated by TMAC, which was put off here in the province to a very, very successful, I guess, to great success. So congrats to Paul and his team on pulling that off, and as well to folks within our department who were instrumental in making that what it was this year. So well done. Consumer show planning well underway for 2025. New deadlines have been implemented for booking and payment. We'll take you through some of the I guess what we've identified as the best opportunities from a consumer show standpoint as well. Certainly don't need to read through all these, but I will just bring your attention to our 2024-25 North American travel trade marketplaces. So if you run down through this list, this is basically the who's who, or what's most important in the industry from a North American standpoint, and marketplaces that we will be participating in. TCARD, DMOs, and operators all have an opportunity to participate in most of these. From an international standpoint, of course, very similarly, TCARD, DMOs, and select operators do have an opportunity to participate in those referenced here. Just as I guess as a in reference to Canada Showcase, number one there, what a fantastic reception we had at the Canada Showcase Europe just this past week. Certainly wish we had been able, that we had the news that we could share with the industry, but what a fantastic follow-up that we're able to go back to those folks that we met with while we were there. Folks from France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, the opportunity now to go back to them and say, hey, guess what? As a follow-up to the great meetings that we had, we now have expanded service based on yesterday's announcement. That we could not ask, the team couldn't ask for a better opportunity to a better reason to follow up with the trade than that. So that's one more wonderful thing that we've got going for the industry right now. Consumer show planning, obviously our focus will continue to be primarily the travel and adventure shows in Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, New York, Vancouver, Calgary. All of those basically in different ways help with what we refer to as the marketing funnel. You'll often hear marketers talk about the funnel with awareness at the top and conversion at the bottom. These shows really run the gamut. We still have a lot of awareness building, so top of funnel, to do in places like New York, Vancouver, and even Calgary, whereas Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, I mean, we see people at the shows that are coming up to the table with their tickets already booked and asking what they can do when they get here. So it's very important that we have operators with us at those shows so that you can engage directly with those folks. And of course, we also explore, and this is something that we will continue to do, is explore new consumer and niche shows. So just recently, we took part in the Toronto International Snowmobile and ATV show with Go Western and Newfoundland and Labrador Snowmobile Federation. We have only in the last couple of days been to Snowbound Expo in Boston, and we've got several more targeted for the United States. So I should reference as well, we, for the first time ever that I'm aware of, at least, and I do stand to be corrected on that, we actually implemented a media campaign, a paid digital campaign, to coincide with our travel show season last year. And what we saw was an excellent response to that. You can see the stats there for yourself. And if anyone has any questions on any of this, so, CTR, click-through rate, any of the acronyms that you might see there that you're not familiar with, by all means, send those through and we'll get back to you on that. But basically, the whole idea of this campaign was to create a little bit of awareness for people that would be in the vicinity of the show, to try to encourage them to go there, and then a geo-targeted follow-up with eNews, which is our email marketing suite, which saw almost a 50% open rate. So as a quick reference to that, I remember, I'll say 10, 12 years ago, people thought eNews email marketing was going to die because of digital. I remember in my previous role being happy with a 30% open rate, but to see over almost 50% of people actually opening and looking at our emails, just an incredible response. Again, travel media planning for 2025. You can take a look here and see where our plans are. We recently had an excellent response on a fam tour from First Class Holidays, in which they had said that their experience here in the province, and they echoed that when we spoke with them at Canada Showcase in Paris last week, that the experiences they had here in this province were the best they had ever had anywhere. So to hear that from folks in that market is really exciting. So it's a whole lot to build on for us.
Okay, so our poll question is, how familiar are you with Newfoundland and Labrador's tourism current marketing initiatives?
This is really important for us as we do these webinars. We're asking questions because we want to know. Previously, we've asked questions, and that has helped guide where the agenda goes. So this is going to be very helpful for us to see the level of detail we need to get into in future presentations around providing updates to make sure that you have a good comprehensive understanding of all of the tentacles of marketing that we have on the go.
And I think we're seeing the results that people are somewhat familiar. We probably want to increase that very familiar as we move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is encouraging though. So thank you very much. From a visitor services standpoint, of course, those are the folks that are on the ground and having those conversations with our visitors most often. So you can see a listing there of our seasonal sites and our Deer Lake and St. John's locations that are open year round. That's okay. So again, I won't take everyone through all of these numbers, other than we'll leave that up for a few seconds for folks to take a look. And again, I believe this presentation is being recorded, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay. So just at a quick glance, you can see that 2024's numbers are definitely up over 23. And as well up over 2019. Now that varies, of course, by region. We did have the effect on the Argentia and Whitburn locations, in particular, due to the Marine Atlantic interruption that we're all very familiar with. But overall, you can see that we did encounter some encouraging growth here in terms of visitation numbers. Welcome Desk. We are very happy. We feel like this is a big win for us. We've actually integrated now the Welcome Desk, which a lot of folks, when we say that, probably recall the digital ads and some of the digital inventory we have online about icebergs, whales, and puffins from our friends Seamus, Maggie, and Joan. Well, we've actually now implemented that if someone calls or contacts our visitor center or our Welcome Desk, they're going to reach one of our very qualified visitor information center counselors. So our travel counselors are going to be the folks, and have been the folks that are now answering phones, and who best to speak with visitors or would-be visitors than the folks that are speaking with them and are living this on a daily basis. So we're very happy with that, and we'll continue to build on that as we go forward for sure. Just really quickly take you through the Regional Visitor Information Center program, funded and provided 8 regional centers across the province. We had a partnership this past year, and we continue to have partnerships with Gander and Area Chamber of Commerce, and we will continue to review that over the winter. So 2025 and beyond, I will tell you that when I speak with a lot of my colleagues from throughout Canada and for that matter throughout North America, they're really looking at where visitor services is going, and everyone agrees it can't stay stagnant. It's not just about the brick and mortars anymore. It's about getting out there in the community. It's about implementing new technologies. So we will be engaged in a bit of an internal look at what we can be doing to make visitor services even more engaging and exciting and helpful for visitors as we move forward. And I think that's the key, is finding out from visitors, what do you need from us from a service standpoint? It's called visitor services for a reason, and we want to know how to service those folks the best we possibly can. So we'll continue to focus on that as we move along.
And we're into the next question. With the Welcome Desk contact center now integrated into the role of visitor service staff, there's windows popping up over my question. Let's try it again. With the Welcome Desk contact center now integrated into the role of visitor services staff, it is crucial for them to have the most up-to-date information about the products and offerings. As tourism operator, do you regularly connect with your local visitor service staff to provide updates? Closed out my question. So the answer is 9% are
Wow.
saying yes. And 42 never. So I think we probably need to change that if we're going to be more efficient in how we
I think that the most encouraging thing I see there is that it's 42% who said never, but I see the value in doing so,
Yeah, that is-
and zero, never, but I don't see any value. If that had been flipped, I would have been really concerned. So that was good to see. Okay. So next, of course, we're going to take you through the advertising and consumer engagement piece, which tends to be top of mind and front and center when anyone thinks of advertising or thinks of the marketing efforts that we do. So at the beginning of this past year, for what we call the touring and explorer market, we looked at several objectives. We looked at building destination awareness, of course. So again, that's the top of the funnel when we talk about that. Driving engagement and trip planning, further down the funnel, and generating industry leads. So getting business to you, getting referrals directly to the operators. And then, of course, amplifying traveler advocacy, because we know, based on conversations, and I'm sure everyone on this call knows, that our best marketing at the end of the day is the word of mouth that our visitors pass along, and the way they talk about us when they go back to their home province or home country. So one of the things that we did this past year, of course, we always talk about the weather, and it's a topic of conversation here in the province that rivals any other topic of conversation. So I remember being at an event at RVC Rendezvous Canada, I think it was last year, and an operator, Mike Gatherall, I'm sure most people here on the call know Mike. And Mike made a comment when so many of us were grumbling about the weather. He said, guys, I've been doing this for 27 years, 20, however many years Mike's been in business. And he said, not once have I heard any visitor complain about the weather. He said, we let them know, and they're prepared in advance. And he said, it's only us who care about the weather. So that, as well as a number of other conversations, helped us lean into the weather a little bit for our campaign last year. And we saw an excellent growth on that in terms of our key performance metrics, with 4.5 million web sessions. So that's 8% over the prior year, and organic traffic jumping by 24%, which is an excellent metric there as well. And Welcome Desk, closer look. So once again, this is all about driving people further down the funnel. So this was very much an approach where we said, what are the kinds of questions that people ask most often? Whether it's with respect to the puffins, the whales, the icebergs. What we saw was a 20% increase in visits to our trip planning pages, 14,000 plus engagements in that campaign, and an increase across all of our metrics that you can see there on the right side of the slide. So we were very encouraged with that, and again, all of those efforts to drive people to operator referrals, drive people into the hands of operators to complete the sale, we'll say. That was where a lot of the effort came from for Welcome Desk. Spring Tactical newspaper. Once again, this was something that when similar to email marketing, a lot of folks, their first response will be newspaper. Who's reading newspaper anymore? Well, I can tell you a lot of our audience is, you may not be, I may not be, but folks that are visiting the province, they are. And one of the messages that we heard loud and clear from the industry last year was that we really needed to be in market earlier. So we did that. We actually launched 6 weeks earlier, thanks to that input. And based on input that we received just this past year, we were able to modify things even further. So I don't have the exact date in front of me for our current campaign, but we have been able to bump that by a couple of weeks as well, because we, like the rest of the world pretty well, are seeing that people are making plans further ahead of time. So we need to adjust accordingly as well. Again, the amplifying traveler advocacy. There you go. There is no better advertising. There's no better marketing than the third-party credibility that comes with having a friend or a family member tell you, you've got to go here, you've got to see this. And you can see the results that we had from leaning a little bit more into that with our As Seen By initiative. And of course, I think most people will remember the Super Bowl this past year, and they probably won't remember it because of here in this province anyways. They won't remember it because of the Chiefs and Taylor Swift. They'll remember it because of the now infamous Verbo ad that played on there. And we I guess, to use a corny cliche, we took that lemon and made lemonade. And the response from the public was unbelievable. The earned media on that was ridiculous in a good way. $2.5 million in earned media. And when we talk about that, that means the news coverage that we had received nationally, internationally because of that. So that was a little twist that we managed to work with our partners and get out there within 24, 48 hours, something like that. It was warp speed anyways, and it certainly paid off for us. So looking ahead to 2025, similar to what we talked about with leaning into the weather last year, one of the other things that we heard come back from industry and from travel trade, from operators and from visitors is that despite all of the things that they see when they get here and how much they look forward to seeing the icebergs, the whales, the puffins, enjoying the hiking, enjoying the culinary, all that we have to offer, there's one thing that when they go back to their homes that they talk about the most, and that's the people. So even though we don't have a finalized ad here to show you today, we will have that in the coming weeks, and we'll show that to you. Rest assured that we're really leaning heavily into that piece of what really makes us unique. It is a delicate dance because to tell people to come here for the people kind of feels like you're patting yourself on the back. So there's I guess, a subtle way to accomplish that. But we really feel like what we've got ready to roll for this year is going to do that in a great way, while still highlighting the many USPs that we've come to depend on. So for the first time in a few years, you will see a brand new production. So we've actually developed new digital video and photography from St. John's and Bonavista areas, photography and video content from the South Coast of Labrador, which we're very excited about. Comprehensive digital social newspaper designed to create, cultivate, and convert traveler intent along the path to purchase. So again, that's all about making sure we're at all the right places in the marketing funnel. We'll continue with our series with Global Mail and continue to lean on that from a digital standpoint as well. And we'll continue with our key transportation partners, WestJet, Air Canada, and Marine Atlantic. On the horizon, so just a couple of things here to just to speak to real quick, that we'll have more updates to come on. But we'll continue to work on the welcome desk. We'll continue to integrate that into VICs and into a lot of the efforts that you see, whether it's at the visitor service centers or if it's at the at our shows. We've already started to integrate it into our consumer shows. So you'll continue to see an evolution of welcome desk as we move along. This one here, I'm really looking forward to speaking about this one in more detail. Unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. I guess the closest comparison I can draw is what we've been able to do over the years and what has been done for quite a while with Iceberg Finder. But imagine Iceberg Finder with a twist, more of a focus on AI, to tell a story about the whales that we have here in the province, and as well as user generated content. So when you hear the acronym UGC, user generated content, that's what will power this initiative that we're looking at right now. So stay tuned on that one. And of course, we'll continue to invest in media support to further engage our visitors at consumer travel shows in our key markets, and we'll continue to find ways to follow up with them beyond the show as well. And of course, we'll continue our investment in hunting and angling. We've worked very closely with Corey and his team at Newfoundland and Labrador Outfitters Association, and we'll continue to do that. It's a huge driver here for the province, excellent economic impact. And Corey, I'll see you and the folks out in Deer Lake next week. And of course, we will continue to invest in our winter resident marketing campaign. Very important to get us through, to get a lot of our operators through the winter months, and to help out with whether it's getting people out in the outdoors or getting people to experience the nightlife and culinary scene that we've got lots to brag about. We'll continue to invest in that one and have more details for you soon.
Darryl, that's a lot of information.
Yes.
Thanks so much for trying to make it very concise and make it understandable.
You're very welcome.
We'll now ask our participants, what marketing channels have been most effective for reaching your target audience this year? People answering? Okay, I think we're close to closing. Social media is no surprise. Anything, Darryl, that you want to comment there on those?
Sorry, folks. Yes. Number one, engaging through Newfoundland and Labrador tourism opportunities. So folks, understand completely that you want and need to be doing your own marketing out there, and congratulations for doing that. Continue to invest in that. But please don't lose sight of what we are able to do for you as well. And if you have questions on that, reach out to us afterwards. Reach out to your respective DMO as well. I was at just throw a real quick bouquet here. I was at a session which Legendary Coast hosted just last year, where Alicia had discussed with the crowd, with operators in the room, of what exactly they're able to get from the department at no charge to them. And one of the things that they hadn't realized, and obviously we need to do a better job as well in communicating this, is that they're able to have three or five, there you go, I need to double check that, but 5 different images in their listings online. So a lot of them had one image that had been there for years and years. They didn't realize that they were able to have multiple images. They also didn't realize that they were able to change those images on a fairly regular basis. So talk with your DMOs, reach out to us. Lots of opportunities that we can include you in. We just need to make sure that we're having those conversations. So next year this time, I'd love to see number one jump from 10% to 80%. How about that?
I think that's a nice aspirational goal there. And again, thanks so much for your work on this.
Perfect. Okay, back to me. So that took us through our research and our marketing. Thank you, Krista and Daryl. So I'm going to just walk you through some of the updates under our product development banner. So product development is broad. There's a lot going on. So I'll just take you down through some of those key highlights for us. And we're really focused on the visitor journey is really important to us. And we are trying to systematically make sure that nothing is falling too far behind on our product development, that we have a lot of things moving forward all simultaneously. And we don't do all of the product development. The tourism industry itself does the product development. We are there to support you in whatever it is that you want to advance. So there's a lot on the go. Access could be its own category, but I always park it under product development. It is the most important product development initiative that we have for all of our access. But in particular, air access is really critical right now. When you look at the link to the growth in our visitation as it relates to growth in inbound seat capacity, we know that this is an area that will continue and probably always need us to be the leads in advancing increases in our capacity, both domestically and internationally. And we have seen that 2023 was a banner year when it comes to our inbound seat capacity. And I think, we saw good growth this year over last year. And, there's some things that have may drop us back a bit next year with the loss of Flair and some other routes and specific markets. But we've also then seen an increase then in our international as recently as yesterday with the announcement with WestJet. The first year of the UK direct route 3 times a week was incredibly successful. And as a result, they have expanded for next year. We will have an additional route per week to the UK. So that will be 4 direct routes a week. Then we have 2 direct to Dublin, Ireland. And for the first time ever, we will have 1 direct route into France. These are really important for us in growing our inbound capacity. And it's really good for the connectivity that in those particular areas are robust gateways that will help provide good connectivity for people coming to the province. We are seeing continued growth in air visitation, not at the same pace as auto visitation, but we're still strong. And we are working on deepening our partnerships with all of our transportation providers and airlines. So a couple of the key priorities moving forward is to continue and grow our domestic capacity. We know that not all of our, we do have really good, strong connectivity right now into our key markets, but we're still not back to where we used to be in some of our other markets, like our connections into Halifax and others. We want to continue to expand internationally, the announcement of the additional international routes yesterday was an amazing announcement. But we also are still having our sights on the US and getting a transborder from northeastern US, which possible for 2025. Hard to say, but we're all of us as partners are working on that. And the other area that we've had a lot of conversations with our stakeholders in tourism and our Newfoundland and Labrador airports is all around intra-provincial capacity and affordability. And intra-provincial capacity is really important, not only for residents of the province, but for visitors who don't necessarily want to drive entirely across the province, but want to experience different regions of the province, or want to, or for whatever reason aren't able to drive. It does. We are working on trying to improve that intra-provincial capacity as well. For high value guests, which is the second thing under our product development plan, the big piece of work that we're doing there is around our exceptional experiences program. So Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador has taken the lead on working with a consultant to prepare that program. All of the program documents are prepared. We have all of the processes kind of lined up, always lots of details that we're going to have to iron out. Now we're just putting together the budget and finding the resources for the Exceptional Experiences program. We do anticipate a rollout early in 2025, crossing fingers, and that is a very exciting program that we want to focus on those high value guest experiences and providing a little bit more differentiation between those experiences and all of the other experiences in the province, giving a little extra support in promoting those experiences, because it's providing a closer connect of our high value guests with the high value experiences, and that's what we want to try to do. So more to come on that one. The Culinary Tourism Development Project. Craig, do you want to unmute and give a bit of an overview of that program and upcoming next steps for that one?
Thanks, Carol-Ann. We did or Minister Hutchings and Minister Studley did an announcement a couple of weeks ago on a culinary strategy development project that we're leading. We see this as a tremendous growth opportunity. It lines very much with the vision. And if anybody heard the interview this morning with Todd Perrin, we know that the culinary industry is feeling the pressures pretty intensely from COVID and now as we continue to move out of COVID. So we're really hoping that the culinary project is going to be able to set some foundational things to be able to springboard into the future, a much stronger industry, and be able to help drive some visitation in the shoulder seasons. We're putting together an advisory group to help lead that. We're going to have a manager in place who's going to work through all of that. Those things are happening every day, including at 3 p.m. today. There will be a meeting on that. So it's really one that's on the front burner, and there should be something a little more public very soon for people to be able to engage with.
Thank you, Craig. So the next area that we'll report on would be our visitor journey gaps. So the graphic on the screen is really just the visual representation of a typical visitor journey through their engagement with Newfoundland and Labrador. From they are at the center of this equation for us in the tourism industry. From the time that they have any interest in Newfoundland and Labrador, and as they're gathering information, we want to have the information that they're looking for at their fingertips. And when they reach out to us, they are able to get somebody on the call. I did recently get, we received a letter recently from a couple from Switzerland who came to the province. They said that they have come to Newfoundland and Labrador many, many times. They love it here. This was one of the first times that they traveled later in September and October. And they, they gave us some really good insight into the challenges that they had in finding the right information that they were looking for, particularly around season extension. That there were a lot of accommodations that had their operating season, that they were going to be open. They reached out to, I think one of the examples they gave us was that they reached out to 20 accommodators and only 2 returned their calls ever. And this was in September, October. So we have some work to do to make sure that we are putting the right information out there for our visitors. And then when they start planning and booking, that we do have the information there at their fingertips, that they don't have to work hard to try to find the ways to get here and the options for getting here. So those are things that we're integrating in everything that we do in our marketing and visitor services to make it easier. Then once we make that brand promise and we hook them and they're coming here, then we take them over to the other side of that visitor journey. And that's when they're on the ground and they're experiencing Newfoundland and Labrador. So that is where we park our access transportation and our visitor services and trying to understand how our visitors are impacted by all of these things on the ground. And we want to deliver an amazing experience to every single visitor when they get here. And we deliver those exceptional experiences at our accommodations and at our food and beverage establishments through our natural and cultural attractions. And then the myriad of experiences that they have along the way on their tours and events, experiences, that kind of thing. So we are, in everything that we do, trying to find ways of closing that gap for our visitors, and especially in the things that we put out there. And sharing information amongst ourselves is another way that we're able to do that. Reaching out to visitor information centers and sharing more information about your products and services. We have open mics at the department, so sharing visitor information is one of those things that we really, as an internal network ecosystem, we really want to focus on that. We did engage with a consultant to help lead an accommodation needs assessment in particular, because we knew that there were, we knew from a number of our travel trade partners and others that there were some particular bottlenecks in our accommodations. So we do have a research agency that is working with us on that. Unfortunate timing when we started the accommodation needs assessment, that not unfortunate, I guess I should say that, but it happened right around the same time that we started to implement our Tourism Accommodation Act, and all of those new registrations came in. So we had done a whole bunch of analysis, and then we had 1,500 new accommodations jump into the pile. And so we're trying to navigate that final report right now. I think we've got another meeting on that on Friday. So hopefully by the winter, we would have the accommodation needs assessment prepared. And we're also internally doing something that we haven't really done before, and that is trying to develop a bit of an asset management product development baseline on our experiences. The product development team has been going through a bit of an evolution in terms of our HR, but we have a really strong team starting to form a couple of vacancies, but we're still we're working towards filling those. But the team has worked really hard on establishing what are the experiences that we have, and providing quarterly updates for us on how we're progressing in terms of the information that we have out there for our visitors that they're able to access on our site, and more to come on that. Season extension could be a pillar on its own. We have been, by we, I mean Krista, has been pulling together everything that we can around season extension and our seasonal performance. I did get an early snapshot of some of the stats historically and moving forward, and the growth that we have seen in our shoulder season visitation has been dramatic over the past decade. It is our strongest growth in spring and fall. And so we want to we want to share that information with the entire province. We want everyone in the tourism industry to have the same hymn book that we're all singing from when it comes to our visitation and where those opportunities are to grow visitation. We already understand that in a lot of pockets of Newfoundland and Labrador, when it comes to the peak July and August seasons or months, we are at capacity in some of our areas. We know that Marine Atlantic is going to be reaching some capacity limits as far as availability of cabins and that kind of thing for people coming over. So there's going to be capacity in terms of how you get here and the experiences that you can have while you're here in the peak season. So there's some really good opportunities for us to still grow. We can't lose sight of always having to have growth in our peak season, but building out extra weeks on either side of the peak season, and obviously still continuing to do some work in winter, we see lots of opportunities there. And so we are going to be doing some of that engagement with our key partners over the next little while. And I'm crossing fingers and making a promise that for the spring update in 2025, we'll be able to have all of that wrapped up, and we'll be able to share that with all of you for the next update. We are also advancing our season extension networks. We have been working with all of our regions to lay out a little bit of a plan on how do we move season extension forward. We know that it does require a broad group of individuals, organizations that all have to come together if we are going to extend the season. So our main natural attractions that we operate, or that the Parks Canada or the federal government operates, our airports have to be there. We have to have our support organizations, our tourism services and attractions, anyone that is interested in expanding their season. If you have that capacity within your organization, we want to work with you in our season extension networks. So the Western region is really a bit of a model for us around winter and season extension engagement. They have had, for the past, I don't know, I'm going to say 5-6 years, the Western region has had a winter stakeholder group, which has been active and meet regularly and come together to advance initiatives to grow the winter season. We're going to be working in the Western region soon, hopefully to have the first fall season extension network engagement. So we're working on that now with Christy and the team at the Western DMO. I put in a few of the key priorities that we have when it comes to the bigger natural attractions in the province. Sorry, I just got to move my screen so I can actually see what I have on the screen. So when it comes to arts and culture, we're not the tourism branch is not the branch directly responsible for arts and culture investment. That's our sister branch or brother branch of arts and culture within tourism, culture, arts, and recreation. So they take the lead on arts investments. For 2024, there were a substantial number of investments made around 2024 Year of the Arts. Come From Away was in Gander again last year. And the 75th anniversary, and all of those investment programs that have been out there with community groups and others have really helped raise the bar on the experiences that are available in our communities. And, I look forward to continuing to work with arts and culture, because we share our goals in wanting to expand those experiences that are available. Craig already talked about the Culinary Tourism Development Initiative. We do see that this is a really big season extension play. Culinary development is important throughout the province for all seasons, but we really want to put a fine point on using culinary as a way to build more experiences to attract more demand in those off-peak seasons. Indigenous tourism is another one of our key experience categories. The Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation recently signed an MOU with the Newfoundland and Labrador Indigenous Tourism Association that outlines our collective desire to advance Indigenous tourism in Newfoundland and Labrador. And we're certainly proud of our partnership with all of the Indigenous organizations and governments in Newfoundland and Labrador. Nature-based is one of the most important ones that we are tourism, culture, arts, and recreation is working on right now. One of the biggest things that I think is most important to us is around building trail capacity and sustainability. We hear over and over and over again that the number one outdoor product experience for travelers is hiking and walking. Walking around coastal communities. So trails, particularly destination trails, are extremely important for us. And when we look at our 8 pillars around the sustainability of natural and cultural attractions, the sustainability of trails is extremely important to us right now. We are working with the East Coast Trail Association as one of the founding, if not the founding, destination trail in Newfoundland and Labrador. They are an organization in Newfoundland and Labrador. They have a vested interest in working towards greater sustainability of trail assets in this province, and so do we. So we have a working group in government that we are trying together to advance having better protections for our trails. We have to adapt as well for climate change, the change in, for coastal erosion and adapting to new weather patterns and that kind of thing. So this is a really important piece for us. And the other thing that TCAR is leading right now is on the Northern Peninsula, the advancing the Great Coastal Trail, which is a massive undertaking. Those are really important. And we know that there are a number of really strong destination trails around the province that we should be learning from. And there's also a number of destination trails around the province that may be struggling with their sustainability or their operations and maintenance or governance. So look forward to seeing much more of a focus from us around trails and trying to bring together a destination trail so that we can all kind of come up with a bit of a go forward for us. We are also advancing Marble Mountain as a 4-season operation, and we'll be working on a future RFP on trying to attract private investment into Marble Mountain. It is a core winter demand generator on the West Coast, but it can be a bit of a generator for the rest of the year as well. And we are continuing with our provincial parks investments as well. Okay, so we are up to another poll question.
You get a chance to take a breath.
Yeah, and a drink.
And a drink, sure. So our question is, as we move through the implementation of Vision 2026, do you believe there's been progress in improving air access to Newfoundland and Labrador? I think voting has slowed. So we're seeing most are saying 45% are saying some progress, 19 at significant progress. I think we've gained significant progress. One of the comments I heard yesterday, Carol Ann, from Andy Gibbons, who was the VP from WestJet, because he was asked the question, Ireland, we had it before and it didn't work. What's the difference? His answer was, now as a province or as a destination, everybody's more aligned. We have governments that are aligned with airports, with industry, with the business community. And that's what gives airlines the I guess, the confidence to continue to invest. So I think a lot of the same paging, uniting under the vision that we've done, the transportation working groups that we're working on, it's all starting to show some of the results. And I think yesterday was a very significant announcement. But indeed, there is more work to be done, and I think we'd all acknowledge that.
Yes, I think it's very similar to advertising, right? You only really see the ads, and you don't necessarily always see the 365 days of work and going to the shows and meeting with trade and all of those things that we have to do behind the scenes that people don't necessarily see. We only really see the announcements, and we know that we have access, but there's so much work all the time on working with the airports, working with our airlines, trying to mobilize whoever we can for marketing. And, you know, airports are taking the lead on that. We sometimes take the lead on that, but we're all in it together, and we're sharing information like we haven't done before. When I was giving the update on the major attractions, I mentioned about Come From Away was here again in 2024. And I was starting to sweat because I was going to say it's going to be back again for 2025. But then I couldn't remember if it was actually public or if that had been announced yet. And I just got the email that it's announced for 2025 again. So Come From Away is coming again. So that's another little piece of good news for next year, especially for the central region you know, I was talking to a tour operator yesterday who said that she was working with a client who was coming here specifically for Come From Away, and then was going to build her 7 or 10 day trip around that particular desire to come here. That's what drove her to come here. So yeah, that's great news. Okay, so let me see if I can move along. Quality improvement update. So I think there's an awful lot of work being done around quality improvement as it relates to the Exceptional Experiences program is a really big piece of that for us. That's where we are going to be working with our high value guest experiences and helping our operators move to enhance the value of and the experiences that they are offering. So that's an important one. The travel trade and media team, Denise has been working diligently on coming up with a plan to do more travel trade market readiness for operators, because we know that it can be daunting if you think that you might be ready to go and meet with travel trade at maybe Atlantic Canada Showcase or Rendezvous Canada, and you may need to have a bit of some awareness building or education around what you need to do, what you need to bring, how it's going to unfold. So how you work with trade. Denise has been working diligently to get that program up and running again. We used to do it back, I think, 2016, 2017. And that's a really important, because we know that there are operators out there that want to enhance their travel trade partnerships. We're going to, I think, see something on that in the new year. We're always looking to find ways of enhancing digital readiness. Destination Canada has some really good stats on the readiness of tourism operators. And we saw back in 2020, when the start of the pandemic hit, there was a big rush to enhance websites, to improve e-commerce, to get client management systems in place, because the world went digital for a spell. So there was a big advance in our digital readiness over 2020, 21, and even 2022. But we need to continue that and to continue to evolve our digital readiness as things are evolving on us. And how do we use that to our advantage? So we're constantly looking at ways to do that. Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador is doing some great work with its partners around climate change adaptation guidance and access to resources and tools. I think, Craig, I don't know if this is one that you might want to say a few words about, because I know you guys have a series of
Yeah, so we did some research several years ago around climate change as part of a bigger project. I guess the limitation we had was capacity within H&L. We could deliver what was written on a slide, but we didn't have that intimate knowledge. This past year, we've signed an MOU with Climb Atlantic, who they are technical experts. So they're working with Tony, who's here today with us, to identify key areas in the province, work with operators to be able to have those real conversations. So those things are taking place right now. There's webinars. We had a webinar just a couple of weeks ago. So having that level of expertise combined with the research that we have is one of those nice little relationships.
And really important for operators, because we know that there are operators out there that are feeling the effects of climate change, many of them, whether it's on their infrastructure or on adapting the season, for changing weather patterns. So this is something that is going to continue to be really important moving forward.
Absolutely. And, one of the ones that convinced me was if you're going to make a big capital investment in something, you've really got to be aware of what that's going to be. So, that the research takes us through that. We've got three main sectors, but certainly having the ability to consult with Climb Atlantic, I think really ups the game on that.
Thank you. The other thing around quality improvement was around our equity, diversity, and inclusion. So earlier in this year, late last year, I think it was earlier this year, Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador has started to work with a consultant to develop a strategy for the tourism industry at large. We did do a good deal of consultation around where the industry was and what the industry felt they needed in order to become a more inclusive sector. I think what we have come to understand about the EDI strategy that we're trying to build is that it really does start at the foundation of education and awareness and understanding what the needs and expectations are of particular groups. And what we know is that there are tourism operations in Newfoundland and Labrador that are doing amazing things, and we can learn from them. So that's a pretty big indicator of where the EDI strategy is going to go. Is building everybody up based on your own individual needs and your desires for your own business development growth. We've been trying to really tighten our connections with Wellbeing NL and doing whatever we can to support the work there. Tourism is naturally a partner of Wellbeing in Newfoundland and Labrador. The things that we support, the things that we offer are all things that contribute to the well-being of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. It's the great place that we have here to live is what attracts people to come to the province, and the well-being of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians is certainly important for us, and it's one of those broad socio-cultural goals that we have in the province. And then, these two, we kind of have them connected because they're all quality improvement, but also skills and workforce development. And hospitality continues, Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador continues to implement Workforce Action Plan that was launched earlier this year. And a leadership update. I don't know, Craig, if you want to take this particular one. I've got, I know that you've done some work to solidify the leadership and advisory structure.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to align with your slide, so I'll speak.
I'll just keep on this slide.
Okay, you stay on that slide and we'll see if I can touch some of those topics. Of course, coming out of Vision 2020 and moving into Vision 2026, we wanted to address the leadership structure. We started, I guess, by working with the DMOs to form what we call the Industry Advisory Group. And we meet quarterly with that group. It's the chairs of the DMOs with their executive directors. We come together and we look at the vision and we look at some other key areas that we need to bring to government by way of advocacy. So it helps H&L with its advocacy priorities. We then signed an MOU among ourselves, and we have that group working. We had our first real honest to goodness meeting in the fall. We brought everyone together, and I think it worked really well. We're still trying to fine tune it, but we're working on it. And I think that's what it'll be, a constant evolution. As part of that process, H&L also signed an MOU with government, which really guarantees at least quarterly meetings with the minister. And right now, I will say with the current minister, is very accessible, but it's not always that way. So having those guaranteed quarterly meetings are important. It also gives us 6 meetings with the deputy minister and 12 meetings with the ADM. There are times I will tell everybody that I meet with the ADM 12 times a day. But what it does do is formalize that, so we are mandated to sit together at certain times, and that really helps with the collaborative process. We also do 2 leadership summits, usually in the spring and in the fall, and that brings everybody into the same room with the minister. So we work through some of the key areas. It's an education session for many as well. So I think that is a success of the last couple of years, getting that system to work the way that it is now. As I said, there's continual refinement in that. We want to make it as efficient and as useful as we can. So there's always an evolution to that.
Sorry, a couple of the last couple of pieces that we wanted to provide was an update on a couple of the more important legislative or regulatory priorities for the tourism industry. Tourist Accommodations Act. You'll recall that we did proclaim the act and in 2023 and have worked diligently to increase the registrations and get everybody on a level playing field here in the province. We have had approximately 2,700 registered accommodations and campgrounds, and I think the number that we had the day before we launched the Tourist Accommodations Act, I think we had 740 registered accommodations. So now we have 2,700. Now they were always operating, but we just didn't have them registered. The other thing that we've been able to do with the Tourist Accommodations Act is to really line up the roles and responsibilities. And our responsibility is about keeping track of all of the accommodations in the province. We are responsible for the registration system, but it has given us the opportunity to work with our other partners in government around digital skills and ServiceNL, justice and public safety around fire commissioner's office. So it's enabled us all to really try to delineate whose role it is to do certain things around the accommodations in the province. There are a couple of other organizations that we work with. I mean, we work really closely with Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador and our DMOs and municipalities to try to understand what is working with the Tourist Accommodations Act and what isn't. And what we discovered very quickly after we launched in 2023 is that we needed to have a specific requirement for platforms to register with us. And we needed to have the platforms identified as requiring to only promote short-term accommodations that are registered. We have been working with the key platforms over the past 2-3 years, and they have been excellent to work with. I think Airbnb was just here recently and had a big engagement in the province and attended Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador conference. So they've been working with us and they want to play by the rules in all of our jurisdictions. So that's been very helpful. The other thing that we're going to require is for the exception that we had when we put the Tourist Accommodations Act out first was if you are renting out as a short-term rental your primary residence. We didn't require that to be registered. We had modeled our legislation after another province, and they hadn't included it. But over time, it just makes sense that if we're trying to capture the short-term rentals in the province, we need to have them all. So we made that change to the legislation as well. And we are expecting the minister announced back in, I think it was August, that by the end of this year, we're going to have the new act in place, or the amendments to the act in place. So that's coming in the coming weeks. The next thing that we wanted to just provide a bit of an update on is the accommodation taxes. That was enabling legislation through the Town and Local Service Districts Act. Craig and Hospitality Newfoundland Labrador are taking a lead role in that piece of work. So Craig, I think you can provide an update.
Yeah, so we had an MOU with municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, I think back in 2018. And we were aware at that time that if there were to be accommodations taxes implemented in a municipality as a levy, as a real tax, there would need to be a change to the provincial legislation to do so. Last November, the Towns and Local Service District Act was announced, and it does allow for each municipality to charge an accommodations tax up to 4%, and they can keep up to 12% for the administration of it. The rest then is to be spent in tourism, which is a very broad bucket. Our challenge with that is that it does not have a voice for tourism in the legislation. So the way to address that is through regulation. We've been working with MAPA and, of course, TCAR, other government departments, to ensure that they understand what we're trying to achieve. We don't want monies to be collected in municipalities and then spent in non-aligned areas. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't help our industry. It actually is a bit of a punitive tax against our operators if people take that money and do something with it other than what's going to grow the industry. So we're right now working very closely with MAPA on those regulations. We're hoping to have some updates very soon on what the outcomes of that will be. But stay tuned. If things are not looking the way that they should, we will be calling for action from our membership. So again, stay tuned on that.
Okay, so that is the update. So we have our very last poll.
So staying informed about provincial strategies, regional updates, and industry initiatives is essential for tourism operators. Which of the following organizations do you regularly engage with to stay connected? Okay, well, it's we've closed. We have 61% H&L, 55 at your regional DMOs and TCAR. That is fantastic. I mean, the network that tourism has, we come together not only as the advisory group, which is part of the leadership thing. There's also the implementation group, which is where a lot of that work gets done. We want to get all the information out that we can, and we use all the channels that we can. We're always open to hear other ways too. Like if there's some other ways that we can get that message out, we'd love to hear that from you as well. Caroline, anything you wanted to comment on there?
No, but I think that one of the things that I said to somebody recently, a new economic development officer who wanted to chat on tourism. And I said, he's been doing a whole bunch of research trying to figure out, the marketing strategy and this and that. And I said, it's so much easier if you just call one of the organizations, either H&L, TCAR, or one of the destination management organizations, because there's just so much information that you could access that if you just have, reach out to your local DMO or H&L, you could have a conversation and they can explain who does what. Because the one thing that we were finding is that, it was confusing who's in charge of research and who's supposed to be doing this, because we do have all of us are working in a partnership approach. So where one ends and the other picks up is sometimes confusing if you're not heavily involved. So I think, if you are confused about anything or you want to know more, reaching out and having a call with anybody in our 3 organizations, I think would be very helpful and clarify a lot of the confusing information that might be out there. So that's it for me.
No final words from you?
Other than thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I can't believe we're about 10 minutes ahead of time. So thanks so much, everybody, and we'll be chatting again soon.
Well, thank you, Carol Ann, for your very insightful update. Very concise, but very heavy. I'm confident that our operators will find the information valuable as they continue to develop and deliver unique tourism experiences. A special thank you as well to Daryl and Krista and Lexi from the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation, and to Juanita Ford from Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador for their support in making this webinar possible. I'd also like to acknowledge the continued collaboration of the Department of Industry, Energy and Technology, ACOA, and our regional destination management organizations, Destination St. John's, Legendary Coast of Eastern Newfoundland, Adventure Central, Go Western Newfoundland, and Destination Labrador, who have played a key role in bringing Vision 2026 to life. Don't forget to follow the QR code provided on your screen for follow-up or if you have any questions. If you know someone who might benefit from these sessions, please encourage them to join on future webinars. While we're committed to these provincial webinars, we're also working on delivering in-community sessions in regions across the province in the near future. Finally, thank you all for taking the time to tune in today and for your ongoing commitment to growing tourism in Newfoundland and Labrador. Have a great day.